Something about what's happening to Diddy right now feels bigger than just another celebrity scandal. Federal agents didn't just knock on his door. They walked him out in handcuffs, and almost immediately voices from his past started talking in ways they never had before. Not random bloggers, not internet detectives, but someone who stood right next to him during hip-hop's most violent era. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, the man who was present when Biggie was hit. The man who says he watched suspicious behavior up close for years. And now Gene is making claims that are so heavy, people are starting to connect dots nobody wanted to connect before. Not just about Biggie, not just about Tupac, but about a pattern of silence, jealousy, control, and alleged inside knowledge that stretches back decades. For years, the deaths of Tupac and Biggie have lived in the category of unsolved mystery. Endless theories, endless documentaries, endless finger-pointing, but nothing that ever felt close to a real answer. Until an insider started talking. Gene Deal wasn't a fan watching from the sidelines. He wasn't a commentator breaking down headlines. He was inside rooms the public never saw. He traveled with Diddy. He handled security. He watched how people moved when cameras weren't rolling, and according to Gene, some of what he witnessed never sat right. Especially when he looks back at the moments leading up to the two biggest murders in hip-hop history. Before there was Vegas, before there was Los Angeles, before there was East Coast versus West Coast chaos, there was Quad Recording Studios in 1994. The night Tupac walked into a New York studio and was ambushed, robbed, and shot 5 times. Tupac survived, but everything changed after that. Years later, Dexter Isaac admitted he was one of the shooters. He claimed he was paid by Jimmy Henchman, a powerful figure with deep industry and street connections. Here's where Gene's story becomes uncomfortable. Gene says Diddy was inside Quad Studios that same night. Not upstairs with Biggie. Not in a session, but in the building while people were openly talking about Tupac having problems with Jimmy Henchman. Gene claims Diddy knew something bad was coming, and he didn't warn Tupac. He didn't try to stop it. He didn't step in at all. Think about that. Knowing someone might get hurt, and choosing silence. That silence becomes a recurring theme in Gene's story. Because according to him, the motive wasn't just business, it was personal. Gene says Diddy had deep jealousy toward Tupac. Not over money, not over record sales, but over something money couldn't buy. Tupac's presence. Tupac walked into rooms and commanded attention without trying. Women gravitated toward him. People listened when he spoke. His energy felt natural, raw, undeniable. Gene claims Diddy admitted he struggled in those areas, that he didn't have that same effortless pull, that he had to rely on power and status. Watching Tupac thrive in spaces where Diddy felt insecure created resentment. Not the kind you post subliminal tweets about, the kind you bury, the kind that grows quietly. By 1996, Tupac was untouchable. All Eyes on Me was dominating. His image was everywhere. His voice was louder than ever. And Gene says jealousy turned into something darker. That brings us to Las Vegas. Tupac leaves the Mike Tyson fight. A car pulls up, shots ring out. 6 days later, Tupac is gone. Years later, Keith D would claim someone offered $1 million to eliminate Tupac and Suge Knight. Only half the job was completed, so allegedly only half the money was paid. Gene says a man named Eric Zip Martin showed him a check for $1 million. Gene asked where it came from. The answer he claims he got? Jimmy Henchman, which opens a terrifying question. If Jimmy supplied the money, who supplied Jimmy? Gene's position is simple. Money leaves trails. $1 million payments don't appear out of thin air. If law enforcement ever fully traces that paper trail, Gene believes it won't end where people expect. But Tupac's death wasn't the end. 6 months later, Biggie Smalls is in Los Angeles. And Gene is there. He says Diddy's behavior that night was completely out of character. Normally, once Diddy decided it was time to leave, nothing stopped him. Not friends, not women, not conversations. That night, he kept stalling, walking back and forth, stopping to talk, pointing people out, dragging time. Gene says Biggie was moving slowly because of injuries. So Gene did what a bodyguard is supposed to do. He told Diddy he planned to ride alongside Biggie's car for protection. Diddy shut it down, not calmly, not casually. He threatened Gene's job, told him if he didn't get into Diddy's car, he would never work for Bad Boy again. Ask yourself why. Why block protection from your biggest artist? Why force your own bodyguard away from the car carrying your star? Gene says it felt wrong immediately, and then he noticed something else. A car already parked at the corner where Biggie's vehicle would have to pass. Not pulling up, not circling, waiting. Earlier, Gene noticed a man in a blue suit with a white shirt and bow tie near the cars. The man made eye contact with Gene, saw Gene was armed, and walked away. Minutes later, Biggie's car pulled out. The waiting car rolled up. Shots fired. Biggie was hit multiple times, gone. Gene and another bodyguard tried to chase the shooter, but their vehicle wouldn't go past a certain speed. A limiter kicked in. They could see the car. They couldn't catch it. Ask yourself another question. Why would a bodyguard's vehicle be restricted from high-speed pursuit? Gene believes that limiter wasn't accidental. After that night, Gene says he reached a conclusion he never wanted to reach. That Biggie's murder wasn't random. That it wasn't retaliation. That it wasn't chaos. That it was orchestrated. And according to Gene, the motive again comes back to control. Biggie was growing beyond Bad Boy. He was building his own company, making independent moves, becoming too big to manage. And in Gene's view, once you became a liability to Diddy's control, your loyalty didn't matter anymore. Here's the part that haunts Gene the most. Years later, he says he learned Diddy allegedly wanted him gone too. Not because Gene betrayed him, not because Gene stole, not because Gene crossed any line, but because Gene knew too much. Let that sink in. A man who saved your life, protected you, stayed loyal, becomes expendable. Gene says that's the real version of Diddy. Not the smiling mogul, not the polished billionaire, but someone who removes perceived threats, even if those threats are people who once stood beside him. Now fast forward to today. Federal custody, multiple investigations, people from every era of Diddy's life suddenly speaking, and Gene risking his safety to talk. Not asking anyone to blindly believe him. Not claiming he has courtroom proof, but laying out a pattern that refuses to go away. Silence, jealousy, control, money, positioning, elimination. So the question isn't just who pulled the trigger. The question is, who benefited, who stayed powerful, and who disappeared? Because sometimes the scariest stories in history aren't about one crime. They're about the pattern behind all of them.